Hey, my name is Marius, and this is not a Nest.js tutorial. If that's what you're looking for, get out. What I want to do today is compare Nest.js with Express, and I've been using Express a little bit for work and stuff, and it's great if you want to use JavaScript in the backend and the Node.js platform. It's a great unopinionated and minimalist web framework. You can get pretty far with it. The thing that it lacks though is the structure. It gives you the basic building blocks, but it doesn't really point you in how you should organize and architect the whole thing. So out comes Nest.js, which is another framework that is actually, think of it as like the next layer up from Express. It's using Express behind the scenes really, and it provides a little bit more of that opinion and structure, and also it uses TypeScript. You don't have to use TypeScript, I think, but that's what they recommend. I think it's very they have a lot of ideas from like Angular with their module system and dependency injection. So that's what I'm looking to explore with this video. Like I said, it's not a tutorial. It's really me documenting my learning process, and I'll probably try to compare it side by side with Express. And really, I'm just gonna stumble through this documentation. I heard they have good documentation. I peeked at it a little bit. So let's get started. All right, so one thing that I like with this site right off the bat is that their hamburger menu is an actual hamburger icon. I like that. Yeah, you probably don't care. All right, I'm gonna read through this real quick and I'll try to summarize it. Okay, so pretty much some of this I already went over. Really, their goal is, or their philosophy is, to provide an out-of-the-box app architecture that is highly testable, scalable, loosely coupled, and easily maintainable. Sounds great. It also fully supports TypeScript. TypeScript is also another thing that I haven't used a lot of, but have been looking to explore, because I work with a lot of people that are very familiar with Java, but not JavaScript, and I think using TypeScript might help with that. Let's see. Installation, they have a Nest CLI. I'm gonna go ahead and give that a shot. I went ahead and installed the CLI globally, so you don't have to watch me do that. But let's see. Let's just go to desktop, and Nest. It says that you gotta use this command to create. Let's call it try Nest. Yeah, why not? Which package manager would you like to use? I've used npm mostly. Let's stick with that. Coffee emoji, good stuff. Get started. cd try Nest. npm run start. Okay, so localhost 3000, that's where it goes. Let's check this out. Hello world. Yeah. I'm actually gonna close this and open up VS Code. So I assume that TypeScript is the entry file. So let me walk you through this as I'm kind of understanding it myself. There is the app controller, which is a basic controller example with a single route. That's what you saw when I was running it. It shows like a hello world. It basically goes through that. There's an app module, which is like the root. Okay. And then there's the main, which is the enter file of the application, which uses the core function Nest factory to create a Nest application instance. Okay. So that's something that's a little bit different with Express. Express definitely has that same controller concept, but they don't have these module concepts. All right, maybe let's change this and see how it works. There is I have my handy dandy npm scripts window here. Let's go back to start. Oh, there's also a dev script. What does that do? It concurrently runs read on this main and on one. So I think that pretty much means let's use that actually, because I see nodemon there. That means that it's nodemon is usually for if you want to make your server restart automatically when you make code changes. That's what I'll do. So let's do that. Start dev. All right, so we're running the application and it's pretty straightforward. You got a basic controller here that spits out, it calls the app service, get hello, and ultimately within that, if I look at app service, it returns a string, and you get this when you go to localhost 3000. So what I want to do from here is kind of compare and contrast with Express, how that looks. I already know how it looks, but I'm guessing it might be useful for you. So with Express, that was pretty quick. With initialization, you just run the CLI and out comes a basic, fairly structured app within like 5 minutes. I know with Express they have the Express generator. I believe I already have this installed as well, so I'm just gonna do that. So let's run this. Let's go back to desktop and Express. So a couple of things here. One of the things, I don't know if I just didn't read into the CLI. One of the things that the Express generator comes with is the ability to select a view engine if you're doing like server-side rendering. I'm not gonna do that right now, so I'm just gonna do can't type no view and provide it with a name and call it my Express app. Okay, kind of similar thing. It puts out a basic Express skeleton for you. Notice here that you have to explicitly do the npm install yourself. I already forgot, but I think Nest just did that for me automatically. So let's do uninstall. Should be pretty quick though. And then run the app. I'm gonna go here, and actually I'm gonna install nodemon. Kind of emulate the similar environment here where we're able to auto restart the application when we make code changes. I'm gonna add that, and we're gonna go and compare this side by side. Hopefully. Anyways, has a basic start script, but they don't have like a dev script right off the bat like the other one do. Let's just copy that format, start dev, and they had that. Remember, I took that from the terminal. They said specify the debug flag, npm start, and then I'm actually gonna replace this with nodemon. Nodemon, take this guy. Okay. And let's compare what does that spit out when you run the script. Oh, my bad. Yeah, so that's crashed because I'm already running this application on the left here from Nest on port 3000. So this also starts out from trying to use port 3000 by default, and so we have to change the port there, and that's under bin www. Default port is over here. Make that 3001. Save that. Let's try again. Okay. Listening on port 3001. This one at least tells me where to go, which is nice. So if I go to localhost 3001, now in their case it spits out this basic HTML page. Alright, so let's kind of compare. This one starts out with a basic user's route, and if I were to kind of emulate, that's my puppy dreaming, if you can hear it. When he dreams, it's like he's getting attacked. Alright. Where was I? Alright. Sorry, I got distracted. Alright, so kind of compare the controllers a little bit. You can see that in Nest, it's very class-based, whereas in Express, it's more function-based. And you see here where they define, there's a router, and then you define kind of the HTTP method, the path, and then kind of the callback function of what it will do when it gets to that path. And you can actually extract this function to a named function if you want. So for example, you can do, cut that out, get user I'm sorry, I really can't type. Right, so their controllers in this scenario takes a, oh gosh, I'm sorry you had to see that. Okay, takes a request, response, and next. So if you're very familiar with Express, when you send back some kind of response, you go through the REST object like this. So let's say that I wanted to send back JSON, I would do rest.json, and then obviously this needs to be a JSON of some kind like that. But there's a couple other things to notice here. In Express, like I said, you go through rest.send. Here in Nest, that's kind of like already hidden from you. You're not dealing with the request and response objects directly, even though it's still there behind the scenes. Nest.js, from what it looks like, I'm assuming, is using it behind the scenes, because notice that our service just returns a string, and that comes back to here. Basically this is a string, so returning a string from the controller automatically does something like rest.send. So I'm guessing it kind of tries to figure out what type of thing you're sending and automatically sets it. So let's say we were trying to do JSON. Let's turn this into an object. Greeting. Oh, and that's another thing. I'm not a TypeScript expert, by the way. I haven't used it much, like at all. I haven't used it at all. So you gotta be a little bit aware of how to use it. So here by default it's saying it's returning a string, but now I'm returning an object. I know that there's an anything that you're not supposed to be using, but I'm gonna do that for now for ease, because I want to return an object. I want to see how this performs. All right, sorry, I'm jumping around like crazy here. Back to 3000. If I refresh this, now we've got an object, and I think, wait for it to restart, refresh this, and notice now we have a 200, and it has a content type of application.json. So I think based on that, it kind of just figures out what your content type is, which is very cool. Like I mentioned, if we compare that with Express, let's now jump into our Express code. If I were to change this to a JSON, let's just try to do that same thing. And just to kind of reduce the confusion here, because I have get hello here, and here I have get user. I'm just gonna, so you guys can see like an actual like comparison of like all this. And with Express, really, when you have these route files, you're defining the routes as well as like the handler. So it's like what Nest calls here as controllers is really this function, like the handler of the routes. And I need to change, where is that? I'll probably go back later into kind of comparing the bootstrapping of it all. So right now I'm just comparing the and this is one of the things that I think with TypeScript it's supposed to help you with some of the refactoring like that. I haven't tried, but that's what I heard. So we've got a basic hello controller here. Let's go to, remember our Express is running in 3001. If I go to /hello, we've got our greeting from Express, and that's what it looks like. And so looking at the code, what you'll notice is, all right, so like really comparing it side by side, how does definition of the routes work? Here it's defined by, you know, passing in here string. Here it looks like it infers that if you don't pass anything, it's just a slash. So for example, I think I saw this in the documentation. If you pass in a string there, that will make it so that now if I refresh this, I think it'll be 404. Yep, I can find it. And now that exists under /hello, similar to the other one. But the difference is, notice that you define it inside this decorator, which is kind of nice. It's more of a preference thing, I think. Like there's nothing wrong with doing it like this. And notice that here it's only a slash because on the top level that's where we defined, you know, the /hello. So like think of it as like the base of /hello is this guy. So really this is the route for /hello. What else? Also notice that Nest immediately comes with the concept of services. That I didn't look into it too much, but they do a lot of stuff with dependency injection. So it's like automatically kind of like inserted into the application. So notice that, you know, this .app service is like there already, right? Even though this constructor didn't do the assignment. Like I didn't do this.app service equals this thing. It just like magically got in there. That's what dependency injection does. Whereas in Express, you don't have that concept. You could of course, build your own services and kind of simulate that. It's very possible, but it doesn't have that opinion out of the box. That's how you should do it, and it is a good idea to have services. That's where you should put your business logic and stuff like that. And then I kind of forgot to talk about it. I was mentioning here that response, you're not working with the response and request objects directly like this. You kind of just return it and it's good. It figures it out for you. Let's actually look at the documentation about that. So in Nest, so it says here, Nest employs two different options for manipulating responses. The standard way is kind of automatic. That's what's happening here on the left. It kind of figures out if it's a string, then it's probably just of type text. If it's an object, or it says here if it's an array, then it's a JSON, and 200 by status 200 by default, and for a post it's automatically to a 1. So that's nice that it kind of also tries to figure out the status codes for you. And I know in Express, if you were to do a post route, you have to explicitly set the status to a 1 if you want to. And I believe Express also does. Yep, does a 200 by default, and it does say you can change that, but it's through a decorator. Let's talk about that in a bit. It does say so. Here's where you can kind of use Nest to still like peek through Express. It says that if you really need to, you can still use the request and response directly. So for example, and here's where the dependency injection magic happens. It sounds like if I did this and did res, res dot status 200. So let's copy what the other one is doing. I think if I did this, that makes sense. You still have to import it. And you do also have to do the type, so that I believe Typescript doesn't complain at you. So you do this, and now this needs to change. Like I said, I'm a TypeScript noob, by the way. If you're seeing, why the hell are you putting any everywhere, that's why. So let's try it again. This should be pretty much equivalent, yeah. So that's if you wanted to use that alternative way of using the request and response. You can kind of dependency inject it like that, and so now the code's a little bit more similar. But like I said, it sounds like from the documentation that's not the intended way that they want you to do it. They want you to use which is a lot simpler, definitely. But it's nice that they kind of allow you to hook into that if you want to use it directly for some reason. Looks like they do have a decorator for injecting the session in, so maybe it'll be pretty rare that you'll be accessing request and response directly. This is nice here where they have a decorators for really a lot of things that you typically would access in that request object, like body for post requests and params. So let's do an example. Actually, I want to get I wonder if you do hello/id. I'm assuming get one. No. Like I said earlier, I'm gonna be stumbling through this. Give me a sec. I'm doing this completely wrong. I think how you're supposed to do it is you put ID here, and you can actually have this as the string up here. So this becomes like my get all, if you imagine it, and this is my get one. And to access that parameter, do like that. I need to import that. Come on, Typescript, can't you import this automatically for me? And let's just return a basic string here. Alright. So if I did like /some_ID, use that, and actually I'm gonna print it out. Let's see. So if we're like 1, 2, 3, I'll get ID 1, 2, 3. All right. And now this makes a little bit more sense now, where it's defining this is the controller for this kind of base path. So that's similar to what I did here in Express, where I'm saying this is the router for /hello. Router, controller, whatever you want to call it. This is kind of like the similar concept there. And then here where it's doing slash, that's where they do when if it's empty. And then I can do, if you want to just see how that looks in Express, I can do /ID. And I mean that similarly. Get one, request, response, next, press dot send, since we're just doing the string, ID. And here, for you to get that ID, you can destruct it from the request object. ID, so it's usually in request.params, so you can actually do params, destruct ID out of that, and do the same thing here. Semicolon, can't forget the semicolon. Everything's good on the terminal. And /hello/456. Yeah, something similar. Okay, so this should be behaving exactly the same now. All right, so there you go. I do like the use of the class methods here like this. It does look a little bit cleaner. I know some people usually what they would do is they'd move these functions into a different like controllers file, and then they would do like controller.getHello, controller.getOne, etc., so that you're kind of separating the route definition as well as the which controller is handling that. And you can of course also put this in a class, right? If you really want to. They don't really gain much from that. So that gives me a good idea of like structurally how is it, or syntactically how is it different, right? Like Nest is very heavy on the annotations. That's very much like whether or not you like that, I think is it's a preference thing. So for example, if I wanted this to be HTTP code 204 for some reason, import that guy. And I'm assuming this all imports from this Nest common. By the way, I don't know that, I'm just guessing. And to do that in Express, it's like, I believe, status, and then the number 204.send. So it looks like that. So yeah, I'm not sure what else really is, there to talk about here. Similarly, again, headers. When I said headers, you do it through annotations. In Express, you do it through, so there is a rest.header, which is really rest.set. Beware that route registration order matters. Order in each reference class matters. I think that's pretty similar with Express. Ordering of routes in middleware does matter as well. So I think this part is a little bit different. I'll need to read into it a little bit more. It does sound like over here they're talking about async stuff, like it they try to support that stuff by default, and they also support observables from RxJS. Interesting. I haven't done that before. I know that's pretty popular in Angular land. Here is a full example. So I showed a little bit of this, and other ones I kind of just talked about it, but there it is. That's what a controller would look like in Nest. And this is, of course, just scratching the surface, right? There's a lot more concepts here. So I think that's one of the things you have to watch out for if you're looking at Nest versus Express. There is a little bit of a steeper learning curve, I think, because you have to understand the module system, and their concept of pipes and guards here and all these guys. All right, I am gonna end this video. I think there's already enough there, like at least comparing the how you do controllers is enough to kind of get a feel for like what's different, what's the benefit. I think if you're coming from like Angular, a lot of this will look very familiar. I also didn't cover testing. Maybe I'll do that on a follow-up. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll probably make a part 2 of this, and